Remfry Dedman, we go again. How are you, sir?
Indeed. We do indeed. I'm very well, Gav. How are you?
I'm fucking magic. I'm magic. We are going to do a podcast about journalism and one of my favourite fucking topics. So I am great, and I've even brought my co-host along for the conversation as well. So anytime you want to chip in, James, you just fire in some conversation, right?
I am purely here to make sure you're not too mean to Remfry.
To be honest with you guys, I think I am a listener to the show, and I've whenever I listen, and Gav does talk about journalism, a lot of the time I am nodding my head. So as a matter of fact, I don't think you're going to have to come in too much. But yes, that's fine. I've been wanting to have this conversation with you privately for years, actually, Gav. So I'm glad we get to do it and record it and put it out to however many people. That's great.
Do you know, we are, I mean, firstly, thanks. Secondly, I think a lot of music journalists would agree. Especially, when I think journalists, people that have really, earned their crust in it and been through publications and done the hard work and graft. I'm not to put down people that are just doing fanzines, but there is a difference. There just is a difference. And there is a bit like people, I know a lot of music journalists are a bit like they would rather it wasn't the way the industry is. So it's not like when I'm having a go, James thinks I'm really like laying into people too heavily. It's more because I give a shit. It's like when I give my daughter fucking grief about not having her vegetables. It's not because I hate her, it's because I want her to be fucking healthy. I want music journalism in the UK to be fucking healthy. And at the minute I'm a wee bit annoyed and have been annoyed for a long time with it. So we can get into all that, but it's not a surprise to me also that a lot of music journalists do agree with points that I make about the overlap with PR and then maybe some of the pressures we get for the industries that shouldn't be there if it was more bona fide journalism. So before all that, because we can get in here, James wrote, ask Remfry if he listens to the pod, which would be completely remiss because I remember on February 29th, that would be 2024, the very first day we started the podcast. The 3 episodes went out that morning, and back in the dark old days when I still popped onto Twitter every now and then, I saw a tweet from yourself that said something along the lines of my new favourite podcast, go and fucking listen to these two guys, which I felt was very generous at the time considering they'd only had an hour worth of material and they'd only launched that morning. So do you recall that, and have you stuck with us since?
I don't recall the exact tweet, but yes, I imagine I did that. February 29th, weirdly enough, in a coincidence, is the anniversary of my first professional feature going up on The Independent. So that would have actually been the anniversary of, and I remember that because I can only celebrate that anniversary once every 4 years because of the leap year. I've stuck with you guys. I genuinely think that, and you said this a lot on the show yourselves. Those 3 episodes compared to what you do now were a bit shit. So I thought that. I thought that at the time, and I still, you guys do what I have. You both have the same sensibility that I have, which I knew anyway because I know you guys privately. But you don't think that the wool should be pulled over people's eyes in the way that it so often is in this industry, because at the end of the day, without the people who buy tickets or stream music or whatever, this industry wouldn't exist. So why the fuck are we pulling the wool over those people's eyes?
That's nice, mate. That's nice to hear.
Totally agree.
I can talk more if you want. I'm trying to keep this short.
Sorry. I gave both of you a lecture before about how long
I'm
this
trying to keep it short, James. I'm trying to keep it short.
Look, let's talk about your let's talk about how you got into to music journalism. There's a story which I hope you'll tell, which involves ArcTangent in the early days. But tell us how you started.
It was a complete accident, me getting into music journalism. I have no formal training whatsoever, which was the sort of thing that I was terrified to admit for probably the first half of my career, which has been 14 years, more or less, at the end of this month. But I do admit it now because why not? I trained as a drama student. I went to drama school A friend of mine who was an actor, she got a role in The Mousetrap, the longest running show in the West End ever, Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap. And she worked at the Independent in the syndication department. Is there a way to describe syndication which isn't boring, Gavin? I don't know. No. Okay. She works in the syndication department and she needed cover for 13 months because she got a lead role in The Mousetrap. I needed work at the time because I realised that acting was absolutely not for me and I was scrabbling around wondering what the hell am I going to do with my life. So I went, okay, I'll do that. That sounds fun. Started doing syndication. Not an interesting way to describe it, but a non-writer role at the Independent. I was doing that for a little while and this wonderful man called Majid Mohammed was running, at the time, independent blogs. The blog section of the website was just a part of the website where anyone could have a go, basically. If you wanted to just write something and just put it out there and put it out to an audience of, minimum a few thousand people, you could do that, and it was pretty cool. Majid kept badgering me and saying, you should give this a go because you talk quite well. Not all the time as just evidence, but you talk quite well, and if you can do that in writing, you'd probably be quite good at it. And I said no for ages. I think he was trying to persuade me for about a year to do it. And eventually he turned around to me and he said, because you have a independent email address, you can get access to a lot of people. Like, you're a fan of music, you could talk to whoever you want to sit down and talk to. And then I went, oh yeah, that sounds kind of cool. And on my list initially, I just wanted to talk to people like Jamie Lenman, Mike Van Art, these small bands that I loved, but aren't massive deals at all. And I just had a short list of maybe 12 names, and I got through pretty much all of them in about a year. But by the time I did that, loads of PRs were coming to me because suddenly there's this voice on the Independent that is writing about rock music and heavy music and metal and weird shit, which just didn't happen before. And suddenly I'm getting all these PRs like our mutual friend Matt Hughes and Emma Van Dytes and like so many amazing people in the industry were just contacting me and going, oh, do you want to interview Slash? Do you want to interview Devon Townsend? Do you want to interview, I don't know, Jonathan Davis from Korn? I was like, I think I do want to interview those people. And it really just snowballed from there. For the first few years of my career, I didn't even refer to myself as a journalist because I really thought I was just doing it for a laugh. But it really slowly started to take over my life. And about 4 or 5 years, probably around, I started 2012, probably around 2015, 2016, I was like, I think I can probably call myself a journalist now. It was probably interviewing Slash. I think when I interviewed Slash, I was like, okay, I think I'm a journalist now, music journalist.
Yeah, I mean, it's, at that point, if you're not calling yourself a journalist, then Slash is not going to be very impressed, is he? No,
exactly.
Fucking T-Boy. The T-Boy's been given a microphone.
Well, I did. I mean, I was still very amateur because I recall actually, and actually this is going on to a question which I know this comes later, but I did actually call him Mr. Slash during that interview because it was going well. And around the 7-minute mark, I called him Mr. Slash and he just didn't respond at all. But, you make mistakes along the way and that's fine. Apologies, Slash. I love you. In terms of the ArcTangent story that you mentioned, James, ArcTangent was the first interview I did in my career. I reached out to you guys because ArcTangent 1 was happening. You had bands on it like Rolo Tomasi and Fuck Buttons and 65 Days of Static. I'm going from my memory here, so help me out if you can, James. TTMG, that fucking
I remember nothing.
There was just so many fucking amazing bands that were playing, and I was like, this is really cool. Like, I like a lot of these, and so I Watch You From Afar. I like a lot of these bands, and they're all kind of coming together in one place. I've never seen that before. I was vaguely aware of 2000 Trees. I was going to come to the 2012 edition, but just basically didn't have any money. Still gutted I didn't go to the 2012 2000 Trees. And I just reached out to you guys, and I think I don't know if you want to take over the story at this point, or
I mean, well, we sat in a pub, didn't we? And
Yeah.
not only was it, well, you're saying it was your first interview. I definitely don't think you told us that at the time, but we were quite happy.
No.
We were like, fuck me, there's a guy from The Independent going to come and interview us. First year festival, this is great. We went to a pub in Bristol. We sat down, chat, had a really great time. And then when it was all done, I think we were all had a few too many beers, and we went to another pub, and then you kind of stayed with us all after. It was like ended up in an all-day session where we were naming stages that day, weren't we? It was like, well, what are we going to call the second stage at ArcTangent? And it's like, is Yokai good? So you were literally, I don't know what your memories are of this, but we made those Bixler stage, PX3 stage decisions that day with you.
You did.
8 pints in at the pub.
Yeah, you were drinking Devel, I remember, which is a very strong Belgian lager. You often have very kindly said that I helped to name the stages. That's absolute bullshit. You guys came to me and you were like, oh, why don't we call it PX3? Why don't we call it Yokai? Why don't we call it this? And I went, yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
I mean,
so
to be fair, I'm still fucking blaming you, because at that point you could have went, those are bullshit names, right? And a guy who's now been to about 11, fucking going to be 12 ArcTangents. I still don't know what the fuck's what. Honestly.
Mate, this is coming from the guy who's...
Go, what are you going to say?
From the guy who sells his stage names.
That's true.
It's a whole episode in itself here.
It's true, Gav. No, but like that thing that you were saying about yes, it was my first interview. And I was terrified. I think something I haven't told you is I was walking around. I got to Bristol stupidly early because I was just ridiculously nervous and blah, blah, blah. I got on the National Express coach to get into Bristol. I'm just walking. Bristol's my hometown, so I'm walking around all my old haunts and stuff. I was listening to Swerve City by Deftones on repeat because that song is such a... You put it in your headphones and you just start strutting like a mother, you know? And I was just listening to Swerve City on repeat just to like G myself up to talk to you, because I was so nervous because it was the first proper interview I'd ever done. And yeah, we've told this story countless times to one another, but it's kind of hilarious because you guys were bricking it as well, I think.
Yeah. It's incredible, really, isn't it? Do you know if that still exists somewhere? Is that something we could share on our... I wonder if would it still be online?
No, it's not, annoyingly, because when The Independent got rid of the blogs section of the website, they just took everything off. However, I think I have a screenshot of it, so I will double check that on my computer. And
okay,
I can
that'd be
send you
cool
the
to
screenshot.
share in the pod group at some point.
Yeah, of course.
That is quite annoying. I mean, just before I came on, I spent a couple of hours trying to go back and find examples of writing that I'd done for festivals and reviews and ones that stuck out, and almost nothing's there. Almost not. I mean, one I really wanted to put, it was like a Disturbed review. It was 2 out of 10 if we fucking download one. And I wanted to remember exactly what I said, but just because the backlash was so spectacular, it was like, this guy knows nothing about metal, and I bet his favourite band is fucking Bon Jovi. And by that point, I was booking Carcass.
Yeah.
And it's like, but also it was the point that, listen, before Disturbed became the absolute bangers they are now, this was just because the set was objectively shit. His mic wasn't working. I mean, how good can a Disturbed set be when the guy's vocals are not coming through? So I want to get a bit. There's very few morsels around the internet now that I can find of any of the fucking hundreds of gig reviews and festival reviews done, which was pretty disappointing. So it's a shame to hear that's the same situation with your interview you done with James and Co, because it'd be great to go back and get some of those.
Yeah, and it's not as if there isn't infinite space on the internet or anything, more or less. Look, hey, these companies, the people that you work for, they make the decisions and you have absolutely zero say in it, so you just have to sort of live with it. But I was savvy enough to get some screenshots of those things. I imagine I probably went straight to the ArcTangent one because that was the first one I ever did, so of course I would have wanted to keep that one. So I probably do have it somewhere. But yeah.
So you're going to these interviews then, and I mean, basically, interview style, especially you're doing something with a passion. Is that just a common sense? I mean, do you know what you're trying to get from him? Are you going in there with a journalist thing? You go in, you want a line. You want what that intro is going to be. Is going to set it apart from anything else that Joe Public would be talking about. Are you getting into that just in a more general, like, I'm just going to ask interesting questions about what I want to know? I mean, how did you, if you had no professional training, how did you go into approach those interviews?
Much more the latter than the former. I was not thinking about how can I get a good pull quote out of this? I was not thinking, how can I get a good headline out of this? How can I get a good sub-headline out of it? Apologies for all these terms, but I think they're fairly easy to pick up on. No, I wasn't thinking about any of that. I was just thinking I want to sit down in a room with Jamie Lenman and ask him about the last 3 minutes of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. Okay. And what was the feedback then? You're writing for a blog section where you said you've got sort of a mentor style chap who's trying to push you on. What was the feedback and that stuff?
Well, Mentor Majid, as we shall refer to him for the rest of this episode, hopefully, if he comes up again. Mentor Majid was the only person at The Independent who gave a flying fuck about what I was doing at the time, which was a blessing and a curse, because basically I was a complete cowboy at The Independent. I did what I wanted when I wanted, and I was able to do that because I didn't realise what the actual protocol was. And as a result of that, a lot of the independent work that I did still remains the stuff that I'm proudest of, because it is me completely raw and unfiltered. The sub-editor for my work, sub-edit, do we need to explain what sub-editor is?
somebody you're putting that copy through. So a sub-editor, if it was a newspaper, would be the person that puts the pages together, puts the captions underneath the pictures, puts the headline. The journalist doesn't write headliners, a sub-editor does it. Online, you lose a lot in actually building the page, but what you have is somebody's just going through your copy, making sure, I don't know, you're calling Tony Blair a wanker in the middle of it, and Independent are fucking getting a defamation case. So sub-editors, somebody make a call a proofreader if it makes it easier.
Yes. So a sub-editor / proofreader is an essential thing that should happen with your work. I was my sub-editor. And I've got to give a shout out to my girlfriend at the time, Amy Jeskins. She and I'm going to give her a shout out because she literally went through every single thing that I did, probably for every single feature I ever did on The Independent, and went through it all and was like, you can't call David Draymond a racist pig. I was like, why not? Et cetera, whatever.
And then, all joking aside, the courts don't care that you're just someone who's managed to stumble onto access to the Independent's website. I mean, your words printed on the Independent's website are meaning the exact same in terms of defamation or any contempt of court or anything else as the chief reporter who's been there for 30 years. So, I mean, it shows you how Wild West, journalism was going on to the internet at the start. People weren't doing the same way they were going into print. There was no way you were getting a single fucking character into printed Independent without 7 people checking over. Yet you were getting the same power going online, and your girlfriend was helping you.
Yeah, because basically no one was checking up on what I was doing until I did an interview. What was it? I think it was a Devon Townsend one. And the hits that they got from that, the clicks onto the website, were ginormous for a blog. And I got called into, not the editor's office, but I got called into someone's office, and I was shitting myself. I thought, fuck, the game is up. I'm in trouble here. And they were like, why aren't you writing this stuff for the actual website? What? Hey, what? You're writing this on blogs, and this clearly should be going into the actual music section of the website. Why aren't you doing that? The hits that you're getting, you should be doing. I was like, okay, I can do that. So I'm not in trouble then. No, just do it on the actual website. So then I went over to that. So there was that. I mean, one thing I've never publicly said before is the downside of that cowboy approach to things. And the upside was amazing. The freedom, the expression, blah, blah, blah. That was incredible. The downside is I didn't get paid for a single writing gig I did at The Independent for 5 years. And
is that after it's going on the website?
Yeah. I did like it in terms of business, payment, blah, blah, blah. It remained a hobby until I think it was around, it must have been 2016, 2017, when, again, Amy Jeskins, my girlfriend at the time, she turned around to me and she was like, this is pretty ridiculous that you're not getting paid for this shit. You need to, do something about that. So I did tentatively say to them, well, I'm getting quite a lot of hits. I think, do you know what? I think we premiered Opeth's new album at the time. I think it was Sorceress. And it got something insane, like 30,000 hits or something like that, which for the indie in that section of the website is pretty good. It's actually very good. And I think it was after that my girlfriend was like, "This is just stupid. Why? You need to get paid for this. You know, they're making a lot of money from you, and you're making nothing in return. I was still making money from my syndication shifts, which I kept up the whole time, but you're not getting paid for your work, and you're interviewing. You know, you've got an interview with Chris Cornell coming up. You've just interviewed Maynard James Keenan. This is ridiculous." So I started making a bit of a kicking up a bit of a fuss about that. And to be totally honest with you, that was the beginning of the end of my career at The Independent, because they didn't seem to like that. I did start getting paid for stuff at the Indie, and I was paid for a few bits and pieces, but 90% of what I ever did for The Independent, I was never directly paid for.
Yeah, and I mean that's probably when you're going to a blog section. I mean, you'll see that as some sort of community news style, people contributing, whether it was in print or online, and that's why it wasn't really thought of as well. And as soon as you started getting hits, people dragged you in and says, "Well, we should be contributing this towards the end of it." Unfortunately for you, and ultimately the end of my career, as we were in that side of it when there was no money left for anything, and all contributors and columns. You see this, the big papers, the Sun and the Daily Record and Independent, the big expensive columnists all started to go, and then the big sports writer days, and then they were, now what you get is one sports photographer going to a game and selling the pictures to 5 different papers, and so even at that, I mean, had it been 20 years previously, Remfry, it might have been a situation when you were bringing in the numbers that they would have found the money for you. But
Totally.
I mean, I'm excited. I ended up in that position myself. I was cutting corners with a budget at the end for, I mean, everything. So I could still imagine it would have been the same at Independent. So you go from that. So you build you, gives you a platform. It's one of these things that your mentor was right at the start. That email address gave you an opening. That, I mean, look at James. Now, the first year ArcTangent, they could have been getting that from metaltalk.net or rockimpress.org, and they weren't going to the pub nervous. They were going to the pub nervous because it said Independent after your email address, and that did open up a lot and give you that foundation, which no doubt leads you on to where you are, what you went from there.
Yes, which, well, as things were, as I was becoming less happy at the Independent, I was very invested in what was happening in the world of podcasts and so on and so forth. So, you know, I kind of always had in the back of my mind, I wonder if I could go into that somehow. Terry Beezer, who set up the That's Not Metal podcast, he actually reached out to me and asked if I'd like to be involved in a sort of redo of That's Not Metal. At the time, that seemed like a very good opportunity at the time. I'm not going to go into the ups and downs of all that, because anyone who knows about the That's Not Metal's a great podcast now. It wasn't then, because it just wasn't.
Remfry, I don't know about it. I don't know about ups and downs. If you want to go into, I'm also okay if you want. I'm joking.
I just can't be fucked to start beef, frankly. These days, I'm 41. I just can't be asked with it. It was a bit of a disaster. But that's how I met Stephen Hill. And then we, after a lot of persuasion from me, we thought, why don't we just start a podcast ourselves and basically bring all the best bits of That's Not Metal into that without the shit bits. So that was Riot Act, which I did for the next 4 years, and that was pretty successful. I think it's fair to say. I think it was time.
Let me just. It was fucking great. I loved it. I loved it. I listened to every single episode. You are correct that That's Not Metal is good nowadays, but I really like That's Not Metal nowadays. But
it is.
I miss Riot Act massively. Brilliant podcast.
James, tell us about his list. Cause I got turned on to Riot Act in its final stages by James. It was he was like, "Oh, Riot Act's this one," and to be fair. It feels like the only podcast and sort of comparable in our bubble to what now Two Promoters One Pod has become. And I don't mean that. And I just, when it was listed, it felt like there was just I don't even know how I feel that comparison is. We do something very, very different, but I don't know. You felt like sometimes it may have blown smoke up my own arse here, but I feel like you can walk in a conversation with rock music fans, and I've heard the Two Promoters One Pod, and I felt like when you walked into a conversation, the people had heard of Riot Act is probably what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I think a lot. Go on, you're here to talk, Remfry. You go.
I think it was I think it's the thing that we were talking about earlier about the honesty. Like, we came at Riot Act, we came in with an honesty and trying not to talk down to the listener, and trying not to pull the wool over people's eyes, and trying to be honest about what the industry was like sometimes, or what music journalism was like sometimes, and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's the DNA that Riot Act and Two Promoters One Pod share. And people respond to that really well. People aren't thick, but if you treat them like they're thick, then you'll attract a thick audience. But if you treat people like they're smart, intelligent individuals, then you'll tend to attract a smart, intelligent audience.
Do you feel like James has been putting off the audience recently with his Mastodon picks? Because I feel like we're getting a backlash.
Mate, I think...
don't. I don't feel like that.
Look, me and Remfry are on the same page on music a lot of the time.
A lot of the time, although your criticisms of The Hunter are a little OTT. But, yeah, fine, whatever.
I think a lot of our listeners agree with you there. I mean, one quick thing I wanted to ask you about Riot Act was, it must be brutal reviewing music because I do that book club thing where I don't have to prepare what I'm going to say, but I listen to 5 albums a week and we talk about them. But the idea of people listening, I mean, me and Gav do it once a year with our Album of the Year show, and it's actually the episode I have to prepare for the most because it's not that easy to talk for 10 minutes about an album and say something different about a similar genre album the next week. It must have been really hard to do that over and over again.
It was it was a pretty mammoth workload. Just in terms of... So again, I'm preempting a question that will come later on, but I love music. We all love music. We're all in this industry because we love music. But when you are forced to listen to something due to work, rather than waking up and going, oh, I really fancy listening to Waking Ida right now, or The War on Drugs, but I can't. I've got to listen to that new fucking Five Finger Death Punch record. Kill me now. You know what I mean?
And was that part? Because I wasn't such a regular listener as James. Is that the same way that's not metal do it? That they will force themselves to listen to the new big releases because that was part of the programme. That you're going to get our opinion on the latest ArcTangent albums one way or the other because everyone's talking about it.
I think it was. Yeah, I was only part of That's Not Metal for 4 weeks, and it was I could write an entire...
on Riot Act when you were doing it Riot Act. So you're saying because you're never waking up in the morning and saying, "No, it would be fucking great to talk about Five Finger Death Punch." What I'm asking is, was that part of the structure of Riot Act? You would discuss that album just because it was going to be a big release?
Often, yes.
You did some of that, didn't you? Like, you would be like this week. You would have been reviewing Megadeth, even though you probably think it's shit. Wouldn't you? So you might not have done Architects and you might not have done Sleep Token, but there would have been a fair portion of what you did because you felt like it was what the audience wanted to hear your opinion on it, right?
We definitely did do Architects and Sleep Token, but yes, I mean generally the things that we decided to do, I would look up at the album pre-release schedules and make a massive list of stuff, and then at some point, usually a couple of days before recording, me and Steve would have a call and we discuss, what albums are we going to do this week. Sometimes that was a really easy conversation. Towards the end, it got a lot harder in terms of like which ones we chose to do and which ones we didn't want to do. But my view of Riot Act was always that we were a podcast who were trying to push new, exciting music, and that was the main focus. If we chucked in a couple of biggies in there as well, then so be it. That's cool. But for me, my laser focus was always I want to give a platform to your dim skewers, your overhead, the albatrosses, like you guys are doing now, which is awesome, by the way. That's what we wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do, certainly.
A couple of sort of behind the scenes in industry style questions before we move on from Riot Act. Firstly, did you guys did you make money from it? Did you get to a point you could make money? And did you ever tour or think about going out and tour?
We did okay financially. We made enough to we didn't. The business made minimum wage. We didn't quite, but we weren't a million miles away from it. We had a Patreon, which was the main source of our income. Patreon would explore, we do like 2-hour long deep dives on classic albums and stuff like that. And that was very successful. We ended up getting, I think towards the end, we were on something like 550 patrons or something like that, at £5 a push. So, that did make a nice bit of money, definitely, but it wasn't like living off of Riot Act alone would have been a hell of a struggle. I probably would have had to be on Universal Credit and do Riot Act if I had done that. Thankfully, I had other things as well. What was the second part of your question, Gav?
And the second point I've not asked you. The second point is, I did the industry. I find the industry very so you just mentioned Dimskewer there. Dimskewer had, 200 monthly plays, now over 20,000 because of their shows at ArcTangent and Damnation predominantly, but also because we mentioned the two promoters one pod. We sold, 500, 600, 700 tickets for the We Lost the Sea tour before the bands told their fans. Yet the music industry still seems very slow to understand the power of podcasts and the marketing power behind them. And did you find that with Riot Act, or did you just get people that finally clicked it? Oh, by the way, instead of sending £3,000 to Meta and getting absolutely no response to this, we could do some money towards Riot Act and really push an album or a tour or a band. Did you get that?
I absolutely found that the industry were incredibly slow to pick up on podcasts, and it would drive me up the fucking wall. I compare it often to the way that the music industry ignored piracy at the beginning of the 2000s. I think this is just my opinion, I think the mainstream big rock metal publications kind of want to just ignore podcasts and pretend that they're a fad. Because the other thing is like a lot of those mainstream publications did actually try their own podcasts themselves, and some of them were actually pretty successful. Some of them were a total waste of time because they didn't know what they were doing. They gave them a go, but like Riot Act was bigger than all of them, pretty much almost from the off. Certainly after 6 months or so. And I don't think people liked that. What's difficult about podcast stats is the only people who actually know what they are the people who do the podcast. So it's very easy to not take them as read, especially when there are people out there who do lie about their stats all the time.
Yes.
So
you do get small indicators that put some of those myths to bed, like the charts. Like you get sometimes you hear about certain music podcasts that would talk to you and tell you that they have 50,000 listeners each week, that you seem to always be 20 spots above in the charts, and we don't have 50,000 listeners every week. So I get what you mean, but it's one of those ones as well. Do you think, Glass, in podcasting, to attract people to podcasts is fucking tough? And you will know that too. You've been through it with several different podcasts, and the numbers don't, even the most impressive numbers. So it's like Joe Rogan at 12 million, and then the next one's like 8 million, and then it's like it goes right down to, if you get more than 86 listeners in your first week or first 7 days, you're in the top 50 podcasts in the percent in the world. And if you can get 3,500 in your first week, we beat that number. You're in the top 1% in the world. So the numbers that you see in comparison to TikTok, where you just go on and you say, "Hi, my name's Gavin McInally," and you get 100,000 views in 10 minutes. It's like they just seem so bizarre. But the thing is with those numbers is they mean everything, because the person who's put that number one there has gone, searched out your podcast, press play, and more often than not goes right to the end. So if you can get 10 to 20,000 podcast listeners like we get, the people, they're invested. It's an invested crowd. And James goes last night in post and says, Remfry Dedman's going to be on tomorrow. Do you have questions? What happens? An invested fucking audience piles on with 50 questions by the next morning to go through. So it's the podcasting's a weird world, and the numbers are not spectacular and used to what you're seeing on the other social media platforms. But the numbers, even small numbers, like a couple hundred people in a podcast, can really be a couple hundred invested people. And when I first read about it, it started like, would you rather have 10,000 uninvested listeners to an engineering podcast, or one listener, but that one listener's Elon Musk? Yeah, fucking take Elon Musk, wouldn't you? So is that the Two Promoters One Pod's a bit like that. We get so many people in the industry listening alongside the fan base. So,
and that's a beautiful reflection of all three of the festivals that you run as well, because all three of those festivals are about cultivating a small-ish in comparison crowd, but a dedicated and passionate one. And that I'm so much more interested in that than I am being, Big Billy Bollocks, like at the top. Big Billy Bollocks at the top is never happy. Rich people are never happy. They're always fucking miserable.
Is that true, James?
Mate, you beat me. You beat me to it, you bastard.
But it's true. It's true. I've never met. I've met a few really fucking rich people, and they're not happy. They pretend to be happy, but they're not. It's
okay. Well, just wrap up the podcast section. Do you want to give us a wee bit like about your other podcasts, and maybe anyone who wants to check them out, or what your plans are for them before we move on to the state of the music industry? We get the boxing gloves on.
Okay, so going on from Riot Act, I started 3 as the magic number with, I've already mentioned him, our mutual friend Matthew Hughes. Matt Hughes does press for 2000 Trees alongside Hayley, does press for 2000 Trees and ArcTangent, so he's a fantastic co-host to have because he has fingers and pies. So that was really, really cool. 3 is the magic number. We just get guests on to talk about their top 3 favourite subjects in a topic of their choosing. James, you've been on it? I don't think you've been. Oh, Gav, you did one. You did a live one with us at ArcTangent. Of course you did.
I was like, there's no one else available.
Yes,
Is there any...
yes, that's true.
Is there anyone who would be stupid enough to go on stage tomorrow morning and have it's like, I need to do what? I need to come up with my 3 favourite gigs drunk at 12 o'clock at night?
Yes.
Count me in.
I think we had a cancellation and you did save our bacon there, so thank you very much for that. So there's 3 is the magic number. Some people will ask you if that's still an ongoing concern. Yes, but me and Matt are just really freaking busy right now. Actually, this is a good opportunity for me to push Matt. Matt is releasing music for the first time in a long time under the name of Forest, and as a matter of fact, he's playing 2000 Trees Festival. I believe that's going to be his debut show. I've heard a few tracks, and it's really good. Have you heard any of it, James?
No.
It's really good.
Me any.
It's really, really good. He has been collaborating with Arcane Roots behind the scenes, and I hope I can say all this. He's been.
I was just wondering whether that was a secret or not.
Yes, I will double check with Matt. Shifty, possible edit point. He's been collaborating with Arcane Roots behind the scenes, and Andrew from Arcane Roots has been helping him out. And there's some, I mean. Yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
While we're releasing secrets, I think Andrew will probably join Matt on stage at 2000 Trees. Is that a secret?
That was the thing that I was not sure if I was allowed to say or not, but fuck it. Andrew, I believe that is going to happen, unless like he comes down with a plague or something like that. I hope he doesn't, because Andrew's one of the nicest people in the world. But that stuff is very, very cool. So please follow Forest on Bandcamp. So he's busy doing that at the moment, as well as being a father and a husband and co-owning a PR business. I've got my fingers in lots of different pies at the moment, most of which I can't talk about at the moment because either the projects are very much in their infancy or I've signed an NDA. But I've got a lot of stuff going on as well. So is 3 the magic number going concern? Yes, it probably is. But I haven't got a clue when we're going to get round to it, which then also leads me on to calculating infinities. My co-host Simon always has a go at me for not being able to say that properly. Calculating infinite T's was just a fun project that I did with my buddy Simon Clark, another fellow ex-journalist, I suppose. who I've always thought is amazing and was always in the blog sphere, just to defend some of the blog sphere here, Gav, which might be a small bone of contention. Some blogs are fantastic and some writers in that blog sphere are so far beyond the professionals, in my opinion. It's a small pool, but they do exist. And I just wanted the opportunity to work with Simon, and he came up with this idea about... because merchandise is basically how bands make money. So how can we do a podcast around that? And that's just getting guests on to talk about a T-shirt that they picked up at a show or any kind of merch, really, and discuss that. And we had both of you on a super early episode, didn't we?
You did?
Yeah.
Yes.
Together.
It was a good chat. It was a good chat.
Which at the time, I thought we were doing you a favour, but I think by the time the episode came out, you guys were doing us a favour, because Two Promoters One Pod. I can't remember if Two Promoters One Pod had launched prior to us recording it. I think it had,
yeah.
Yeah, but only just.
Yeah.
So yeah, we thought we were doing you a favour, but it was absolutely the other way around, because Two Promoters One Pod went like that.
Well, you're welcome.
Well, thanks very much. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Would you just before James? I know you've got a wee bit here about some of the interviews. Do you want to? I mean, 'cause I know we presented some of these questions before. Do you want to go on that, James?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking let's park that to the end and let's get into the let's get into the state of the music industry. I need a very quick toilet break.
Oh, your bladder's getting weaker.
I'm very hydrated. I'm a hydrated person.
Fantastic.
I keep myself at high level.
Cut that.
Okay, so now we're gonna get on to the bit that was really why we wanted you to come on, Remfry, which is to talk about the state of music journalism in 2026 and cover some of the points that Gav's been over a number of times on the podcast. But before we do that, can you just tell us what you're doing now, what music journalism you're currently doing, and then we'll go into a bit more detail.
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure if you guys even know this, because I don't think I've had an opportunity to speak to you privately about it, but I kind of have. So I do still refer to myself as a music journalist, but the only reason why I do that is because I don't know what to call myself anymore, apart from Remfry. I for the past, I think around 2021, let's say, I started going, I don't know if I want to do music journalism anymore, because really the thing that I find most satisfying about working in the music industry is helping bands that I like succeed in whatever they want to do, whatever success means to them. And most of the bands that I work with, success means to them getting a gig at ArcTangent sometimes, or getting a gig at Damnation, or whatever that is. But that's the thing that I like to do. And at the beginning of my career, it felt like that I was able to do that through journalism, but the power just seems to have been being sucked away more and more and more and more away from me as time has gone on in terms of that. And as a result, back in 2021 kind of time, I started sort of saying, I'm not sure if I really want to do this anymore. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do instead. And it took me a really long time to figure that out, to be honest with you. But now I still in a sort of freelance capacity. I do a lot of, so I've been doing a lot of work for Snapper Music recently, who are a label who also run a bunch of other labels, K-Scope, Peaceville, Madfish, and Charlie. I've been writing, I came into working through them because Mike Venart, beautiful human being and wonderful man, came to me and said, K-Scope are doing a bunch of Oceanside reissues, and we want someone to write liner notes, and you're the only person on my list, which was a lovely thing to hear. So I did liner notes for Frames and Self-Preserved While the Bodies Float Up. That was a wonderful job, and I just enjoyed doing it so much. Snapper were really pleased with what I did on that, I'm guessing, because they continue to ask me to do other things. And really, I'm kind of working with their catalogues and trying to find ways to help them out with promotion and so on and so forth. Some of that is through writing, and I really love that part of it because, as I'll probably discuss in a moment, there's an awful lot of restrictions on music journalism, which you don't get when, for Frames, which was the first job that I had, writing the liner notes for Frames, they said, you've got 2,000 words to write about one of your favourite albums of all time. Go. And that was an absolute revelation. You don't get to do that in music journalism. If you're lucky, you might get someone going, you've got 500 words to write about your favourite album of all time. Go. But even then, it'll be, but we want you to cover this and we want you to cover that, and, make sure you bring this aspect in. And it's like, I don't want to talk about all those things, but fine, whatever. It's a paycheck. And I kind of rediscovered my love for the written word recently. So that has been an amazing thing, and I'm incredibly grateful for Mike bringing me onto that and the work that Snapper give me, which is really, really cool. I have just... And I did say to myself, I just sort of promised to myself that I would stave off of podcasting for a little while. But I have just started being an additional kind of co-host person on the K-Scope podcast as well. And it only occasionally comes out. It's just to support their releases. But I hope by the time that this podcast goes up, my first one of those will be up, which was me going over to Jeff Wayne's house. Jeff Wayne was the guy who wrote the musical version of The War of the Worlds, which is one of the biggest selling albums of all time, and sitting down and talking to him about all of that. And that was really awesome. Amazing. And not something that I would have ever thought to do before. Jeff Wayne obviously was on my radar, and I admire War of the Worlds and stuff like that, but it was so cool to do that. And that should be out hopefully by the time this comes out. I'm probably later today, after we finish this, I'm going to finish editing a podcast with Paul Draper from Manson, because they've got the K-Scope have got the Manson back catalogue as well, and they are a fascinating band. They were kind of popped into the Britpop era, so everyone kind of assumes, oh yeah, they're just like another Pulp or Oasis or whatever. They're really not. They are really fascinating. I mean, if Manson were ever to reform, which I don't think is going to happen, but if they were ever to reform ArcTangent, that would be a perfect place for them to play, because they are a lot weirder than people give them credit for. So there's that as well. And then other than that, there's just a bunch of other little or potentially big maybe projects that I'm sort of starting, all of which I can't really talk about at the moment. But yeah, I'm kind of a general writer / podcaster, music dog's body. And I go where the work takes me, and sometimes it takes me to some. Actually, recently it's been taking me to some amazing places. So it's great. I'm happier than I've been for a long, long time working in this industry. There's still struggles, freelance. Yeah. Good Lord. But generally things are good. But yeah, in terms of what do I do now, I still haven't come up with a succinct thing. Music. Yeah. Writer, podcaster, dog's body is about the closest I can get to it.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, James, you sent me a review that we can either chat about or not chat about if it's not been published yet. Yeah, so so you just are you unavailable at Scribe basically if a Metal Hammer, a Rock Sound, or a Crank need somebody to help the review sections, the albums, all lives, and you're just like, well, that's me. I'm here. I'm freelance available. And is that regular work?
Effectively, yes. With Metal Hammer, it is. I have a good relationship with Jonathan Stelzer, who's the reviews editor there, and he sends me bits and pieces from time to time. And I wanted to keep my oar into music journalism because I just think it's a smart thing to do. I have lots of my own writing projects that I'm working on, but it's good. I think it's a good idea to be given stuff as well, because when you're given stuff that you might not necessarily want to do, that's actually quite a good challenge. and you should probably embrace that. So I think I can say that. I think that's an all right thing to say. So,
and can you see the album that you were given to review most recently?
I don't see why not. So
I don't
see why not.
You don't see the score or anything.
So the issue won't be out yet, but in a forthcoming issue of Metal Hammer, I was given Dim Skewer's Dust Eater to review, because obviously it's being reissued and coming out on Big Scary Monsters. Again, mutual friends of us all.
James,
I believe.
does that mean they're eligible for the 2026 Album of the Year awards too?
I think it must, because I feel like it was reviewed previously in Metal Hammer, but which is interesting but maybe that's wrong.
It may well have been, but I think when, like, it's happened with a few records. I remember Let Live's Fake History was, given a kind of soft release, is probably what we'd call it in the industry, and then Epitaph picked up on it because, when a word of mouth thing builds, which has happened with Dim Skewer, and let's face it, whilst the industry would probably never admit this, 2P 1P has a lot to do with that. Then they're going to want to re-review it and go, oh, by the way, this is now getting a proper official release. Because I think, had they done a vinyl run prior to Big Scary? There we go. So they hadn't done a vinyl run. They did a really, really short CD run. But yeah, so now it's just being given the proper push, which that record absolutely deserves. So
amazing.
Okay.
So let's look. Let's get ready to rumble, guys. The reason we're here is because I think Gav should remind us why we're here, really. What is it, Gav, that bothers you so much about music journalism in the modern era, in 2026? What is it that's getting your goat? And then let's give Remfry a chance to agree or disagree.
Okay. Well, the crux of it is, I feel like the music industry had given away its soul, and with that, it lost all its power. So the Kerrang of 20 years ago, or Metal Hammer of 20 years ago, Rock Sound, NME, they don't have the flex or clout or power that they had 20 years ago, not because the internet's here, but because they gave it away. They gave it away to PR, they gave it away to try and get bigger interviews, they gave it away to try and clickbait people into to get tracked. They put engagement traps, fucking top 5 Linkin Park songs ranked, top 5 Linkin Park albums ranked, top 5 Linkin Park fucking costumes ranked, until people just completely switched off. You had big sites that were hyper focused on like a Machine Gun Kelly, because they knew it was getting traction rather than that. And what you're left with now is a situation where you can give a site, I don't know, Metal Hammer or Kerrang, the big boys can have 2.5 million followers on a site like, I don't know, a Facebook, and put out a post for, say, Health for Damnation, and barely get one thumbs up, or the Damnation forum with barely 10,000 members in it can put the same post out there and get 500 comments and interaction, and that was all just a slow. This happened across journalism. I mean, I've got to be in my bonnet about British journalism. It's just about talking about the music part of it here. I feel like the big newspapers have all done the exact same thing. Also desperate to get some sort of slice of the internet market. They gave away what they actually did have, was with some sort of integrity or power or clout. And they've just become the latest wee genie down the street that's got a camera phone calling herself a journalist too. And that's my biggest issue. I feel like when Kerrang told you that I have Funeral for a Friend are the future of British music, everybody listened, and they became the future of British music. Well, Kerrang tried that again with Employed to Serve, and unfortunately I'd love to have seen that happen for Employed to Serve, but there was no real traction behind it. And they get a situation now, you get agents going, oh, my band's got the album of the year and Rock Sound, or album of the year, and Terrorise them as well. And it just means that, not that it means nothing, I'm sure it means a lot, the credit to that band, the recognition that they've done something great. But in 20 years ago, that used to mean everything. That band were going for clubs to fucking arenas because these magazines said so. And I think objectively you can say that that's not a power that they've got now, and you can't just blame the internet on it. And one of the big things from it as well, forget the internet, is people have got it lopsided. They think that the PR and the band management have got the power, when 20 years ago the press knew that they had the power. So what you've got now is the first magazine or the first reputable publication caves and skews a review to keep curry favour with a PR industry or a management or anybody's in there. Then they know they've got that power. That's what you need to do to keep that same relationship going. But in the past, Kerrang would just bash Marilyn Manson. I mean, Ian Winwood would just absolutely slaughter Marilyn Manson if Ian Winwood wanted to slaughter Marilyn Manson. And that label had to accept it because Kerrang had the power. That's no longer the case as I see it. And now you've got stuff like, you're hearing like journalists, guys that have put years in this topic, like copy approval. By what I mean by that is you write something, then you hand over your copy to the PR for them to see whether it's good to go or they want to make changes. If I found somebody, if I found out somebody done that to me and my paper and my staff, they'd be sacked. That's a red line. That's the difference between being a journalist and being advertisement, is handing over your copy. That copy's not for other people to see. You're the journalist, you've put it together. And then as soon as the first magazine does it, then they say, well, magazine X done it, so you better do it, else you're not going to get access to Slipknot. Then magazine Y does it, and then by that point, it filters down to you get the fanzines and everybody else who just think that this is now the standard, that everyone just has to be fucking pleasant to people, that their job is to make sure that they get the good PR should be pushing you for, can we see the copy? They should be saying, oh, any chance we can get an extra 2Ks and that. Their job is to get the best result for their client, whether they fucking like that band or not. That's what they're paid for. I have no issue with that, right? But the journalist's job is to be a fucking journalist and stand their ground, and the good ones did. But as soon as the power starts to shift to the other side, then you've got that situation where the bigger magazines or whoever it is doesn't have access to the bands because someone's already sold their soul in it, and then it all starts crumbling. So that's an issue I have, and it's about a different type of journalism. I think that the writers at these magazines are all incredible. Better writers than I am, feature writers than I am. I was never a feature writer, I was a news writer. Very short, to the point, here's the facts in a row. I was never a flamboyant sit down and give you the ambience of the room and how the guy was dressed in front of me. And I think these guys do that job incredibly well. But the journalism side of it is the bit that I'm a bit like, I want a lot more news and it to be coming for. Why aren't we finding out more about these claps and festivals? Why don't we hear about when a band gets kicked off a bill and what was the reason about it? Why is it always dressed up in this flowery language that I'm just a bit like, the skills are there, but people are just so terrified that the PRs and management, the companies behind it, the record labels that were, in my eyes, were losing a lot of the stuff that could have been there, say, 20 years ago. So that's my beef in it. It's because I give a shit though, and because I've got some insight to it. I'm like, you guys have got the power. You tell the record label and the managers and everything, fuck off, that you're not going to do it, that you're not going to get the front page, you're not going to get the cover in the next episode or issue unless you've got the rights to put out what you want to do. But maybe it's too far gone. Maybe there's just not anyone left with that power to be able to do that.
I very broadly agree with everything you are saying there. About 85% of it, I would say. I will caveat what I don't agree with in a moment, but I've got quite a lot that I want to say on that, and I'll try and get through it quickly-ish. I think that is the realisation I had in 2021. And that's the realisation. I probably wouldn't have even been able to express that in 2021. I was just like, I'm not happy doing this anymore, and I don't know why. But the way that journalism has gone, because the financial model is clicks, it's about getting your attention and getting you to click on the article. But the content of the article doesn't really fucking matter. Doesn't matter. As long as you click on the article. And the way that social media works, and I don't think this was ever intended, but we as a species react way more to things that are going to make us angry. We're far more likely to comment on something that has pissed us off than something that makes us happy. And I think there's a far wider issue going on there with the social media interaction and so on and so forth, which I won't get into now because this will go on too long otherwise. But, I think publications have had to sort of shift to that model, that attention-seeking, attention-grabbing model. You know, if we do a story on, I remember doing the Pixies back catalogue in order of worst to best. You pop that up, and that's going to get a discussion because people are going to go, you put Doolittle number 1 and clearly Surfer Rose is number 1, you idiot, you don't know what you're talking about. So there's loads of that stuff now. And, you know, it's interesting to read up to a point, but I don't know if it's really journalism in the strictest sense of the word. It is and it isn't, you know. But it certainly felt incredibly unsatisfying to me to be doing that stuff. I was like, it's, you know, it's fine for what it is, but it's not particularly exciting or interesting.
The thing is, Remfry, seeing the time that you can do that, because it always seems like hard news, a good, fresh, exclusive content always does well, right?
Yeah.
Even against your rage bait and stuff. If you've got something that's genuinely exclusive and yours, you can get all those clicks as long as you put it work in. See the amount of time it takes you to sit there and put your Pixies albums top to bottom and go through them. See to phone Pixies PR and say, any chance I can get an interview with anybody in the band and getting some newsworthy line that's going to be regurgitated by every fucking other platform out there. That's a way to do it as well. But the easy way to do it is not make the phone call. Just sit down there with your record collection and put that together. And strangely enough, what you say about like causing controversy and the response you get to someone saying something shit rather than it's good is totally right, which always sits for me in a weird way. Like, why are all these fanzine reviews and a lot of the bigger magazine reviews, why are they also just blandly unpleasant, pleasant? Why do always just like everything's just that 4 out of 5 or 8 or 9 out of 10, and just like almost nothing can just be like abhorrent, nothing can just be utter dog shit in the reviews? Because that's the stuff. If you're only looking for clicks, why are they not doing that? Why is everyone just going in and using the same language? And everybody blew the place away. Everybody tore the stage apart in every show ever, and all the fans clapped and they clapped, and there was so much clapping.
Well, I think that probably leads me fairly neatly onto the small part of your initial rant, which not rant, a perfectly fair point that you put across, which is perfectly fair. A lot of it. The small point that I disagree on, you said something along the lines of it's their fault that they're doing that. What I would say is it's survival. At the end of the day, part of the reason why journalism isn't as powerful as it used to be is down to streaming. You don't have to spend $15.99 on a record to listen to it the day it comes out. You don't need someone to say if the new Machine Head record is worth your money or not. It isn't, but you don't need someone to say that to you anymore, because you can pop. I love Machine Head. Oh, Rob, I'm so sorry, Rob. You don't have to. You don't have to have that opinion foisted upon you anymore to make a decision as to whether it's worth. You can just press play at midnight on the day that it's put up on streaming platforms. So when I think what you said was they have given their power away. And I think in some cases you're right, but in some cases the power absolutely was taken away from them. And that's just progress. I'm not going to bemoan that too much, because progress is progress, and, you know, it just is what it is. But as per when people are in survival mode, they do stupid things. And I think the alternative that they have come up with is a very short-term solution to what is a long-term problem, because people are going to tire of these lists and so on and so the listicles, they're kind of referred to, sometimes not kindly within the industry. They are a bit tired of them, and they're not particularly interesting. It does get a bit boring after a while reading, you know, well, I think this, well, I think that, well, you think this. You know, it's not particularly engaging content. It's interesting, like, did you see last year the New York Times? The New York Times? Some massive newspaper in New York voted that massive Sleep Token, Caramel, voted Caramel the biggest song of the year, the best song of the year, sorry. which was a huge thing to have the equivalent of, let's say, The Guardian or whatever, choose a metal song. Let's not get into a conversation with metal or not, but a metal song as the song of the year. That's super, super cool. But Mr. Cynical Remfry Dedman here was going, you've chosen that song because Sleep Token are an enormously divisive band, and you know that it's going to get shitloads of traction. You know it's going to get shitloads of hits. I'm not saying they're not fans of the song. I'm not saying they don't like the song. They probably do like the song. But I believe that the choice was also, this is my opinion, I believe the choice was also affected by how much traction is this going to get online. And that it's not honest journalism. And if there's one thing that journalism should be, above every fucking thing else, it's honest.
Yeah.
And that is a fucking issue. That's a problem. That's a huge problem.
Absolutely, but that's what happened in actual news journalism. What you were getting is a situation. I said this at the start when it was going, because you were getting situations where reporters were all of a sudden getting ranked at the end of the month for how many million hits that they had. And you were like, I know, but there was one time that it was we had a story that happened in Glasgow where some refugee house, asylum seeker house, someone had been attacked. He said it was 6 dead. And everyone went with a story that it was 6 dead. And I was a bit this just seems to be somebody said on the street and news, and all the press, including the BBC, the place you used to be able to go and say, well, they'll at least wait. They don't need the clicks to make money. Even the fucking BBC said there was 6 dead. And it turned out it was one person dead. So you're just being effectively lied to by the people you're supposed to trust. And everybody who went into that American journalism style, it's better to be wrong in first than right in second, because so they get into that headspace. But I was trying to make the point as editor of a daily newspaper at the time is it's going to become a point, be it 5 years, 10 years, 15 years time, that okay, you never got all that 15 years of traction when we were just putting out whatever shite we wanted, but the local full circle to the time that journalism will never be more important, because somebody somewhere is going to want to know what the fuck's the truth. What is it just not being regurgitated by everyone else? And that was about I got. By the end, we were putting it. You would get to the end of the month, and the reporter who'd done a story that said 6 dead, they were seen as reporter of the month. I'm right, but you done that was wrong. That was fucking wrong. How can you put something that wasn't true? This is exactly we sat through fucking university, so we didn't do this. And then at the end of the month, it's about oh, did you see Johnny Blogs across there? He's got fucking 8 million hits for the company, and he's going to be getting celebrated at the Christmas party. It was a fucking lie. It was a regurgitated fucking, even if it was an accidental lie, it still wasn't true. And that's the bit you're a bit at some point you may go full circle, you're going to have a boring site somewhere that just tells you the fucking truth with proper verification and waits till its last even. And people are going to start referring to that site and go, that's because it was on truth.com and it wasn't flashy and it wasn't sensationalist. And I'm saying this as a fucking tabloid journalist. But it's somewhere you can just go and get the truth. Whereas all these newspapers, they gave away that power when they just started following the leader of whoever was going out first and getting those clicks. And the rush for clicks is just... Because then when you actually know about the finance, the clicks were worth fucking buttons. That's why these papers couldn't make money from the internet anyway, for social media. And social media just trampled on them. So, aye.
But
you're taking me down another path back to music journalism, Remfry.
But it's well, I will in a minute. But it's the accumulation of those clicks that makes the money, isn't it? And the thing is, there is, and again, I do agree with everything you're saying, but just an ever so slight.
Come at me.
No, an ever so slight minor rebuttal is simply that the pressure that publications are under to be first is ginormous. I remember being in the independent office, and whenever a breaking news story, I mean, it's really fucking exciting being in a newspaper office when a story is breaking. I remember being in the office when Prince's death broke, and that was one of the most exciting days I ever spent in the independent office, because it's oh, what the fuck's going on? Is this true? Is it not? Blah blah blah. And suddenly the palpable excitement that comes, the adrenaline you get from what's going on? I wasn't even working on the story, but I was like, this is exciting. But it's if you're not first, you will lose out on in these cases, thousands and thousands of hits, and that will turn into probably hundreds of pounds. But you need to accumulate all these stories, and you need to accumulate all of these hits, and you want to be first as much as you possibly can, because if you aren't first off the post and all the time, then you'll lose money and you won't be a business anymore, and you won't be able to pay all your staff and blah 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 blah, or pay any of your stuff. So I understand that pressure being there, but as you correctly point out, Gav, the problem with that issue, the problem with that I need to be first all the time, is that's when mistakes are made. And when a mistake is made, yeah, you might get a correction somewhere down the line, but the correction is never going to be shared as much as the non-correction. This morning, and I don't want to say I'm taking sides on this or anything like that, but this morning I was reading Neil Gaiman had some horrible accusations thrown at him about 18 months ago. And he's come out in Variety and sort of stressed that these things aren't true and so on and so forth. And I was reading this article, and like, I don't know the truth one way or another, but I was very sympathetic whilst reading it, because I thought, let's say for a second that this is true and he has been falsely accused of these things. This him coming back and going, this stuff is not true. It's not going to be shared as much as the initial allegations were, because that's the way the fucking media works. Because someone having allegations put against them, that's a way more interesting story than, oh, actually, those allegations are probably not true.
Yeah. No, of course.
It's sad. It's so tragic.
Is it not the case that there's no way back? The problem with this is, it's like, I think what you said a while ago, Remfry, about reading a review of the Machine Head album. So I'm conditioned to want to know what an album is like before I hear it via Kerrang and Metal Hammer or a podcast or something, because that's how I always did it. And then I decided, like you said, whether to spend my money or not. But someone who is 20 years or more younger than me isn't conditioned like that. So there is no way back here, is there? Because in another 20 years' time, I'm a complete dinosaur and no longer relevant. So the young people decide... Good. So it's just an interesting comparison with, like, I feel this about streaming and like record buying, and it's basically the same thing. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it like that before. But how do you go back to proper journalism? Because young people don't remember it, presumably.
No, they never encountered it. I don't know is the answer to that. The optimistic side of me says that everything is cyclical. Look at vinyl. The optimistic side of me says that people are intelligent and they can see that, this stuff isn't really as interesting as it could be. But then I go onto the Facebook comments page of the Metal Hammer page and I go, oh no, everyone's thick. So I don't know. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. And something I have learned in my career is trying to predict the future, even though I do try to do it from time to time, is a fool's errand. So I can't really say confidently if it ever will go back to that. But I hold on to the hope. Everything in life is cyclical. Everything, fashion is cyclical, vinyl cyclical. CDs are coming back at last. Sorry, Gav, go on.
But we're not asking. I think with music journalism as well, I think it's a different conversation for news journalism. For music journalism, we're not asking for a big stretch in imagination. There was a download review written for Metal Hammer or The Guardian or something a couple of years ago. I wish I remembered the guys. He gave it like download. The one we were at, the wet one, it was like a 2 or a 3 out of 5 in the rating. And it wasn't like it went all in and download, but it just wasn't what we're used to now, that everything is just wonderful and rosy and everyone had the best set ever. And I swear to God, the reaction, first off, whoever he wrote that for, I guarantee they had the most clicks ever because it was shared everywhere, because people could not believe that a music journalist had the fucking audacity to go out and not just say that download was the greatest thing they'd ever been. Every download has to be better than the one before. Every Glastonbury has to be better than the one before. Every Leeds and Reading, just everything. You might as well just fucking repackage it and put it with different band names on it as reviews. And this guy had actually went out there and said, it wasn't that great. And it's true. We were there. It was, listen, no harm to download. It was a fucking swamp. And anybody who spends 4 days in a swamp largely probably isn't having the best time in their life. And
Mate, you were on good form, I thought.
okay, I can still manage, but you get that way. It's like the fans, the readers now are so conditioned. I mean, this point you're making, James, as well, 20 years after it, that we would read reviews of rival school shows and Marilyn Manson's gigs and fucking Raging Speed on where people would put in if they thought the band had an off night or they thought the EP or the record wasn't that great. You would regularly see stuff in NME and Kerrang and fucking Terrorizer where they were saying 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10, not fucking wonderful. Now you get a 5 or a 3 out of 5 for download. And even the fans are going, who does this guy think he is? And then they get into the mentality of, didn't download let him in for free? And this is what he said back to them as if it was some sort of like favour. Like, it's like, that's how bad a 3 out of 5 is. Did you manage to find that guy's name there when you were searching it, Remfry?
I was having a quick look, but I typed in download Guardian and then realised that was a stupid search term to type. And then I thought, I'm not listening to you, so I'm going to go back and listen to you. Sorry.
I mean, do you know what? I'm going to pick a name. It was like a Matt Mills or
yeah.
It was something that's like 2 quite similar names, and I'm sorry for not having found that previously because he deserves the credit of going there and sticking to his guns and saying, no, I'm not giving this 5Ks or fucking 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10 just because it's the done thing. And I've heard other occasions where somebody's wanted to be like, you know what, that Slipknot show, I've seen them 15 times. It was ho-hum. It's like, it wasn't bad, but it was like, not every single fucking headline Slipknot show can be the greatest thing you've ever seen. It's just,
absolutely.
The thing as Remfry referred to at the start, once you start treating people like they're idiots, and you're in your mid-40s and you've read these reviews, you're like, well, what do I think? This sounds like the last 17. You just become numb to it. I mean, none of it penetrates at all. So I don't think, to answer your question, James, there's a stretch of imagination just for some good, big, talented writers that we've got out there to have their own opinion again.
Yeah.
And to buy back into, like, I'm here to review this. This isn't a favour. I'm not doing this a favour to someone. I'm doing this for my fucking job.
Yeah. And then when you are fed the same rhetoric again and again of like, oh, everything's amazing, everything's fantastic, people eventually start to go, so what's the point of music journalism again? Because I've forgotten, because I don't know why I just clicked on that thing, because I just wasted 5 minutes reading that. And time is our biggest commodity these days, now that everything's fucking free. Time is our biggest commodity. So, yeah, I think that's absolutely valid. And, you know, again, Riot Act, it was one of the things that we tried to, you know, we really just wanted to be fucking honest about stuff. And I think people were drawn to that and liked that. I think, is there a pressure from PRs and so on and so forth? I don't, something that I think is probably worth addressing is, there are so many you do get people criticizing music criticism or music journalism or whatever who are onto something but haven't quite got it right. Let's take President being what's the thing that everyone says about
industry plant?
An industry plant, right? For starters, they're not an industry plant. That's not the way the industry works. Even if it was, it wouldn't necessarily be successful. No, people, I don't believe for a millisecond that the likes of Kerrang and Metal Hammer or anything like that are paid to do these pieces. I don't believe that Metal Hammer are being paid X amount of money to cover Sleep Token every 5 seconds. They're covering Sleep Token every 5 seconds because it gets a reaction, because they have, you know, and I always want to say to these people, I don't anymore because I've got a life, but I always want to say to these people, by commenting on this, you are feeding into their hands.
Imagine if we all just stopped. Imagine if we all
That's the thing.
That's another thing. That I'm on the podcast with James, and I will have a go and a banter about power metal and that Megadeth thing. Right? I'm doing that because I'm sitting in a podcast, and I've got a vested interest in generating some sort of response from the listener. I want you to be entertained or feel something, right? But go and find me somewhere on the internet where I am chasing people with Megadeth stuff, saying this band's rubbish or the lyrics are crap. I'm not happening. No, why? Because I know when I'm doing that, I'm contributing to the next Megadeth piece, which I have no fucking interest in reading. I would rather that was about crippling alcoholism or pupil slicer or Svalbard. But I do spend my time on the internet commenting the bands and that I enjoy and interested in. Instead of, when we're on the podcast, I can do it with a wee bit of banter. But you're totally right. That's why they're doing it. The reason that Sleep Token are getting fucking... Every fucking coffin splitter is getting covered with Sleep Token. Is not only have they got the world's newest, biggest fan base in this scene, but they've also got the biggest army of haters too. So you're in a win-win. You're just like, you're either going to get someone saying it's fucking great, or you get somebody saying it's fucking terrible. Either way, you're getting the click, the traction, and the ad buy.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, just to finish off on that point, can I say this? Yeah, I can, because fuck it, it's out there. I know for a fact that Metal Hammer, for example, have done articles where they are paid to do stuff, but whenever that happens, it always very clearly says on the article, this is like, I can't remember the wording now, but it's something along the lines of, this is a sponsored article or something like that. So,
or it used to be, you'd always see just a wee outline on the box, and it would just say advertorial.
Advertorial. That's one of the keywords. There's a couple of them now.
Yes.
But there will always be something, and I do not believe, like, as a freelancer, I'm not involved in any of those conversations. People seem to think that I am sometimes. I'm absolutely fucking not. But I do not believe for a millisecond that any of those publications are taking money for Sleep Token or President. I don't believe that they were, a industry plant. That's fucking nonsense. Those people who say those things, they are onto something in terms of, there's something about music journalism that isn't quite right at the moment, but then they take it into a sort of conspiracy theorist level, which is a little bit too far.
Well, apply the same reasoning to James tonight, right? You go, James, look, guys, why don't we are more interested? We want you to book underground post-metal, and we want you to book underground UK death metal, and you go, right, okay, well, we will. And you put on, or James books Floating, and I book, I don't know, it's 100 Euro Man, and you get a wee bit of traction. And then James books, I don't know, pick a band that maybe somebody doesn't like, so an Alexis on Fire, or I don't know, Bullet for My Valentine. The same person that was on the internet saying to you should book that underground death metal band made no comment whatsoever about the fact when it was announced, is now going wild on all your channels and social media, commenting they hate Bullet for My Valentine or Alexis on Fire. And like, this is exactly what you're doing. You're taking it into the promoting bubble. You're generating all the traction, all the interest, all the fucking pandemonium and hype and PR around the booking that you hate, and doing absolutely nothing to support the booking that you asked for.
Yeah. But the reason that, and I suppose the pessimistic side of me, the reason why that's so hard to change is because whether by design or not, and I actually don't believe it is by design, but whether by design or not, that is playing into our human nature. The thing that I said earlier about we're far more likely to comment on something if it makes us angry than, if it makes us happy. That's not always the case, but believe me, it often is the case. That's just who we are as people. And what's difficult is, in a weird way, it's asking people to change their human nature in order to interact with this stuff. And I don't know if that's possible. I guess it is over a period of time, but also people need to be made aware of it as well. And at the moment, no fucker's making people aware of it, apart from things like your podcast, which is why I'm a big advocate of it. So,
James, I'm very. I'm noticing the timing of James said there's no way. He's getting eyes like, if you don't move on this podcast, it's going to be 3 hours. So listen,
we need to continue this conversation privately, because
and we can definitely listen. It can be. I want to do the music press, because it's not fair to say, oh, here's Remfry Dedman. He's the voice of all the music industry. No, so we're hoping to have this sort of part 1, part 2, part 3 with other journalists and reporters or people for PR side. I mean, by all means, come on. So before we move on, away from the state of it at the minute. I want to bring up, like, when I started doing reviews for, when I was younger, for the Metro and for virtual festivals, it was a massive website at the time. We had the festival awards. It was like the Bible for the UK festivals. I was handed a style guide at the very start when I went out, and a couple of things that were on that style guide, which I would really encourage people that are starting out or maybe working with fanzine and blogs and that, to take on board a couple of the points that when I first read it made total sense to me. Never write in first person. See, if you're no fucking David Bowie or Trent Reznor, nobody gives a shit about your opinion, right? So don't start with I this and I did that and I. Just, you're getting the same thing across when you don't talk in first person. But it doesn't sound so it's about you, which is really off-putting when no one knows who you are to start with. So don't write in first person. I don't think I've ever read a first person review that was a bit like, aye, that made me more interested. And don't do it.
That's more of a blog thing than a professional thing, isn't it? But yes, I agree.
You don't, exactly, I suppose that's a good example. You don't pick up Metal Hammer out and get somebody giving you a first person review of whatever they've done. And by all means, if you are Trent Reznor, you can write in first person, mate. I'm happy to listen. But actually, you're fucking Trent Reznor. I want to know what your opinion is and stuff. Don't tell us what already. Don't see if you go to that gig, right, and you write a review, and I don't go to the gig, and I could also write the same review. You're not doing your job. If you go to a review and you tell us that a mosh pit opened and people clapped their hands and then they played Hut and you know what, everyone went wild, I'll write that review sitting in my bedroom. You need to go there and tell me something that I didn't know. Any of me were masters at this. I remember an Arctic Monkeys set once, and the whole point was Orbital were playing on our stage and Arctic Monkeys referenced it, and they started a song in tune to Orbital. Now, that in itself cool. And it was not like particularly earth-shattering, but it made you feel that you were there.
Yeah.
That it could not have been written if you couldn't have done that for your bedroom. It took you to where that reviewer was with the writing. Do more of that. Tell us something about the venue or the fucking crowd that's completely unique to the situation that you're in. And this is my pet hate, Remfry. And if you've ever done this, I'm sorry. Like, don't ever tell me your journey to the gig. Like, don't ever tell me the train you got on and the bus that you get through. See, unless the train you were on went fucking plowing through the side of the venue and the band kept playing, I'm not interested. I'm not fucking interested. Or don't tell me about how you went to Starbucks or even worse, don't be proud of the fact you got to the gig late. Oh, it was traffic jam and I got to the gig late. You're fucking useless at your job. You can't get to the show you're going to review.
Okay. So predominantly what you are talking about there is the blog sphere. It's very rare, very, very rare. In fact, I don't think it'd get past the sub-editor, some of the stuff that you've just said there for professional publications. Look, in terms of blogs, and this is something I'm going to fight back on you ever so slightly, Gavin, whilst a lot of blogs are just amateurs who are doing it for a laugh and they're not the best writers in the world and blah, 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 blah. The best, the cream of the crop of the blog sphere are better than the professionals, in my opinion, and always have been and probably always will be. That's partly because they're not given restrictions such as word counts, which is the bane of my fucking life. But it's for a lot of reasons. It's because of enthusiasm and stuff. Enthusiasm will take you a long fucking way in any creative industry. But I'm going to give a shout out to Heavy Blog is Heavy, actually, which I do shout out quite a lot. But Heavy Blog is Heavy are just fucking brilliant. I think it's Evan or Ewan. I'm so sorry for. I know it's a 4-letter name beginning with the word E. He runs that site and he very clearly brings on writers from all around the world who are just absolutely on point, and you can feel their enthusiasm come through. They do more they do more album reviews and stuff like that than live reviews. But just to give them a shout out, because I really do. The thing with blogs is a lot of it is rubbish and there's a lot of shit to wade through, and there are a lot of examples of exactly what you're talking about, Gav, and it's blogs are important, even the shit ones. They're important. I would never want to eradicate them.
I feel like you've got that, because I'm quite a bit, and also I'm quite a wee bit more forgiving with blogs, because I know it's unpaid, untrained people that are just doing it for the past. So I'm really not trying to have a dig at them. I maybe get a wee bit if you're writing in those ones, take some of this stuff on board to make your blog a bit more interesting. And I think some blogs are fanzines or whatever these sites. I think they do play a very important part. And sometimes you can get these smaller bands, especially, get some sort of crack in the door where they can get some sort of something to share in their socials. And listen, ultimately, the proof's in the pudding. I give a lot of these fanzines £160 damnation tickets to come and cover the event. If I didn't think there was any value in them, I'd take their money instead. So I just me pushing back and you pushing back me is I do actually think that is important, but sometimes it gets very lazy. And also you know where that comes from as well, with the bigger professional magazines, and like they've heard that there's been things like copy approval and you need to fucking bend over for the PR or the management of the label, and they think that's just the way it's supposed to be done, when that's not the way it's always been done.
Yeah. I guess
excuse, and I feel.
I mean, I really appreciate, Gav, you paying the time lip service 9 minutes ago. And just fucking you've done 2 rants since then. Look, Remfry, we've got so many great questions to get through. If you've got any final thoughts, do them now, and then let's go to the questions.
No, let's go on to the questions.
It's a brilliant chat, and I think we could do part 2 at another point. Gav, before we do those questions, do you have anything else you would like to say?
I'm not going to no more on the journalism. I want to say to anyone listening that thinks the whole thing, this is a pair of pricks and I want to come and fight you, it all comes from a good space. It's like, I believe this industry could be better and stronger. I want to be better and stronger. I've always said, if you come to Damnation and you slate Damnation, as long as it's your subjective opinion and you're not lying about the event, then you're always welcome back. So I'm here. Right, mate. I'm to support.
And not all festival organisers would say that as well. And I'm not talking about you, James.
Gav, the last sentence I said was me cueing you to go to the next section of the plan, not for you to go on another fucking rant about fucking press.
I think that was an important thing to say, though. So, yeah.
Our Patreon, very important to the podcast as a Remfry. See, I don't think we don't have 500 Patreon subscribers, so come on. I know, here's a difficult part, Remfry. We don't separate anything, so you get nothing extra. So you just need to have a big old heart to support the Two Promoters One Pod Patreon. And
I don't have a big old heart, and I don't support you on Patreon because I don't give a fuck about you guys.
Thanks for that, Remfry. Now, there was a Jonathan Bruskin that got picked out months ago, and you might recall me saying he had this outlandish idea where his band would come across from America. They're a covers band called Siamese Dreamers, and they would play, if we were going to be on stage doing the podcast, they would play the intro, Lyra, and then we would come out. Do you remember me saying this to you, James?
Yep.
Yes. So
cool.
He got in touch a wee bit frustrated to say, look, by the way, you've not addressed this on the podcast, and I'm like, why not? And it was a bit like, the honest answer is, we don't even know if we're doing the podcast at the festivals this year, never mind what we're doing with the podcast at all. So he said, right, okay, fair enough, stuff that idea if you're not going to let me get on stage at ArcTangent with my whole American band. What I would like is a shout out for Siamese Dreamers, which is a covers band for the Smashing Pumpkins, obviously. I went and checked them out on Instagram. They were fucking very good. Usually with covers bands that I'm not particularly excited about, they suffer with the singer, because it's difficult to be Chris Cornell, it's difficult to be fucking Kurt Cobain, it's difficult to be Billy Corgan. This guy nails it. It's like you would happily sit at a gig and listen to his band. So Siamese Dreamers, guys, if you like a bit of Smashing Pumpkins in your life, especially if you're from the States, there might be a chance to pass through your neighbourhood, then go and check them out. His second part was, what is your feelings, and we can include Remfry in this, on covers band as a whole? How do you feel, Remfry, about covers bands?
It's really interesting you brought this up, actually. So I've recently gone through a new relationship, not to get into my private life, but I have. And I'm in a relationship with a wonderful woman who has a 5-year-old son and is really interested in live music and so on and so forth, but just hasn't really had the chance to go to shows for a really long time. And she's based in Milton Keynes, and you've got an incredible venue in Milton Keynes called the Crawford Arms, which is an incredible independent venue. And I have been to 4 gigs this year so far. 2 of them were tribute acts. because I'm trying to sort of slowly push her back into the live realm. And there's a lot of stuff that you've got to get Babysitter and Blood and Blood. There's a lot of stuff that you have to deal with. But if the tribute act is playing at the Crawford Arms, which is just 4 miles down the road or whatever. Oh God, I almost gave out our address then. Then that's something that you can do as a kind of tentative toe back into the live music scene. So I went to see a Weezer tribute act 2 Saturdays ago. Which was great fun. They did the Blue Album, Pinkerton, and then another hit set all in full, which was just great, really good fun. But last Saturday, James, I went to see Mortalica. Mortalica are I think they're sort of seen as one of the best Metallica tribute acts, certainly in this country. I got to hand it to them. It was really fun. So, honest to God, I've probably been to more tribute act sets this year in the first month of 2026 than I have in my life. I know I saw Guns N' Roses at one point, but I always treat it quite differently to going to a gig because going to gigs is part of my work life. I don't tend to drink at gigs these days. If I'm going to a tribute act, I'm getting a Balotto, as I did for Mortalica and Weezer. I had a lovely time. So, at the end of the day...
There's a question later which says, what hill would you be willing to die on that people would most be surprised by? Have you jumped forward in the plan?
No, I haven't at all.
This is a revelation.
A couple of bands for the win.
Well, the last thing I'll say on it is, it's not something that I'm going to go to regularly. Like, I'm doing this to try and push my girlfriend back into proper. I don't want to say proper live music. Let's wind back on that. I am doing this to push my girlfriend into getting into seeing new acts again and all that sort of thing. And I think that project, is going quite well. But it's a very useful thing to do that. And I had an absolute blast at those tribute acts. And I'm not going to make a regular thing of going all the time. But it is, in terms of independent venues, it is those tribute nights that are the things that make them generally more money than seeing A.A. Williams, who I also saw at the same venue, who actually had a really good turnout that night. But again, they're an important part of the industry which I'm happy to support. I'm not necessarily going to be there all the time. Having said that, there's a Typo Negative tribute act coming to the Crawford Arms in April, and they're doing October Rust and Full, and I will be there because
this is actually the hill. This is really genuinely the hill you're going to die on, isn't it?
I think it is.
You've went Rob Scarlow on this out, man.
I think, yeah. But I think if we'd recorded, that's the most horrible thing you've ever said to me, Gav. Love you, Rob.
Kill Rob.
I think if we'd had this conversation 3 months ago, I'd be like, tribute acts, whatever. I don't really care. But no, there's totally a place for it, and it's an important part of the live music industry. So fair dues.
James.
That was entirely your fault, Gav. That was.
Your answer's getting wiped out for our buddies at Eyesore Merch. And what they don't deal in is tribute acts. What they deal in is the best of the best. And who's the best of the best by me? Cradle of Filth, James's favourite. They've got a Cradle of Filth web store to go up there beside our Black Label Society web store, their Megadeth web store, their Sleep Token web store, their Deftones web store. Anything you need from any of these bands, merch, be it battle jackets, fucking patches, bags, t-shirts, joggies, it's all on Eyesore Merch. You're a customer of Eyesore Merch. You ever cross paths with them, Remfry?
Yes, at ArcTangent Festival and so on and so forth, and they're lovely, lovely people, and you should support their wares. I have a better Cradle of Filth story. I once peed next to Danny Filth at the Metal Hammer Awards probably 6 or 7 years ago, and he is as tiny as he looks on stage.
And he's not very tall either.
That's correct.
That's defamation case me. Danny Filth's Willie. Aye. So
God, he's going to sue me now. He's suing fucking everyone. Oh shit.
And our platform is on this fucking podcast.
No, so, he's well hung. He's well hung as fuck. Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah.
Ali Feisal's going to be what happened to ad read this week. I couldn't share that with his family.
Once again, the ad read goes off on a tangent.
Sorry.
Listen, if for no other reason, like, can you imagine being Eyesore Merch and Blues Brews and each week getting this I mean, like, most companies would be like, you know what, let's stick to the brand. Here's what you say. No, these two heroes just allow me to go off on whatever fucking tangent that I fancy at that time. They are heroes. They have everything you need for cheaper than you're going to get it anywhere else. Please go and support these legends. They are at all the festivals this coming summer, but right now you can get them at isomerch.com. Once you get to checkout, pod 10 for a full of 10% off. Also, didn't just fuck up the ad read. I never picked somebody for the super sub either, so I'm really on it today, Remfry. This week's super sub is a Siobhan Park Stobart. Yes, Siobhan, have at it.
Good stuff. Okay, Remfry. So
are you going to get a sponsorship from Danny Filth's cock anytime soon?
Remfry, questions.
Clip that.
Sorry.
So we've got a bunch of questions. Entirely up to you as to how quickly you answer them. It will curtail. Okay. Eventually, we will end. Who knows when that'll be.
Sorry.
So Hannah Clark says, does being a journalist detract from your enjoyment of a live show or of hearing a new album? Can you detach the journalist from the music fan?
Occasionally, Hannah, it does. It depends where I am in my life and what everything's, it depends what's coming out. Oh, shit, there's a new blah, blah, blah album. Oh, God, there's a new Cradle of Filth album. Great. Or whatever, yeah, sometimes it does. Sometimes when you're going to 5 gigs in 7 days, the 4th gig in that list could be something that you would normally really, really, really be looking forward to, but by the time you get there, I'm just tired and I just want to sit in front of the TV and watch The Traitors in my pants, which is one of my favourite hobbies. And you can't always do that. So sometimes it does, but most of the time, I think keeping your enthusiasm, I said that weirdly, keeping your enthusiasm in a industry which is full of enthusiasts is surprisingly difficult sometimes, but most of the time, no. But sometimes, yes.
But let's say you really love Mastodon or Meshuggah or whatever, and there's a new album, a Riot Act, reviewing it, or you've got to review it for Metal Hammer. Is there a time where you're like, oh, for fuck's sake, I wish I could just listen to this?
Sometimes, but usually, the excitement of getting said album, if it's for Metal Hammer, because there's the print deadline to consider, so you're probably getting that album 2 to 3 months before anyone else is going to hear it. Usually the excitement of that is way higher than the, oh God, I've got to listen to this. It depends really. The more complex the music, the more chance there is of that happening. If it's a Meshuggah album, you really, really cannot get away with listening to a Meshuggah album once or twice and submitting a review and that review being any good. I'm not saying journalists don't do it, but you can't get away with that. But sometimes it's super easy. I remember I reviewed The Armed's Perfect Saviours for Metal Hammer, and I was given 140 words to talk about The Armed. What the fuck are you meant to do with that? And look, I did the best I could, but I ended up listening to Perfect Saviours about 15 times before I submitted that review. But there are reviews when I get that few words to talk about it. Sometimes I only have to listen to an album once because it's like, well, I only have X amount of words anyway. So, so it varies.
By the time you've introduced the band to, and then mentioned a couple of track titles, you've got like fucking 50 words to tell them what your opinion is.
140 words is 4 or 5 sentences, I would say.
This is a genuine question from me, actually. Is it the journalist that decides the mark out of 10 or mark out of 5?
The journalists submit a mark out of 10 or a mark out of 5 when you sign your contract with the publications. There is a clause in there saying that they have the right to change absolutely any part of your of the words of the copy that you submit. That includes the score. It is a constant bugbear of mine that my scores are often changed, not always, but often changed, and they're often changed for political reasons rather than legitimate reasons.
dramatically changed? You go and you give something 5 out of 5, you get it comes back and it's a 2, or an 8 out of 10 because back at 3. Is it usually just marginally, right? Okay, don't get carried away.
It's usually marginal. In fact, in 100% of the cases that I have had, it's been marginal. I am aware of publications sending back a review and saying we're actually going to give this to someone else because there's a lot of hype around this band at the moment, and the 5 out of 10 that you submitted is not going to look good in history.
That's a fairer way, because I mean, to be told, look, we've got a vision with this band and a future with this band, and also we might not, our editorial staff might not agree with your 5 out of 10 rate. We're going to give it to somebody else, but at least you're doing it in an honest way and transparent way of saying we're going to give it to somebody else who's going to give it a 7 or 8 out of 10. Actually, having it changed, I mean, okay, if it was an 8 out of 10, it came back a 7 out of 10, I'd be like, okay, but if the feeling in the room was I was getting carried away one way or the other, I can live with that. But getting my words changed, especially if it's something I didn't say, I would struggle with a bit more.
I understand the reason why they do it, especially in print, because you need to get the words to fit on the page.
Yeah, no,
so
I mean, you're going to need there's going to need to be some sort of editing, of course, and also if you're tightening up any language, then that's also fine. What I mean is, like, if they're just adding a sentence to say, I know something you never wrote, you're a bit like, well, like hold on here, because it's your byline on it. I mean, and the wider world is not going to care about your excuses. Oh, there's somebody called a sub-editor that sits in this fucking office in a wee fairyland. No, it's your byline that's on it, and you've said that this is incredible, or these guys are heroes when they're actual scumbags, and I'm not standing behind that. So, I get
the changes would never be... look, in my experience, the changes would never be that large. The changes would be, I've submitted a record as a 9 and it'll be knocked down to an 8. What's frustrating about that sometimes is the copy reads like a 9 and yet you've got an 8 at the end of the review. I am very curious to see whether Metal Hammer print the review that I submitted for Dim Skewer with the score that I gave it or not. I already suspect that they won't, because that is not going to go along with their narrative. And that's fine. It's just it's not fine, but it is what it is. And, at the end of the day, I signed a contract saying effectively that they could do that. So,
move on before he loses his job, Gav.
Yeah.
I never even brought it up. You feel like he's throwing grenades into his own house. So
well, look, if I lost Metal Hammer tomorrow, it wouldn't be the end of the world because I've got a load of other things going on. So I don't fucking care.
But never moving on. Hey, I want this because fuck knows if you ever get trend any of these answers. So I really want to get this one. But Chris Ryan from Party Cannon. How important as a PR company are you more likely to view something because it came from a company you trust?
Me personally, no. In fact, quite a lot of the time, especially with Riot Act, the stuff that I felt like we put in front of people before anyone else was stuff that didn't come from PR companies because they hadn't even got to that stage yet. If you want to get into the big publications, it probably does make a difference that you have PR. It depends what you want at the end of the day. PR's a tough one because at the end of the day, it's always a bit of a punt as to whether you will get anything back. But what you're paying for with getting a PR is the chance to get into those magazines, which kind of sucks because you might chuck £500 at a campaign, £1,000 at a campaign, whatever it is, and it might bear zero fruit whatsoever. But
yeah, I mean, his word in here of trust is probably. It's not like the magazines are sitting saying we trust that PR firm. It's probably how much flex does that PR firm have? I mean, how much clout and how much what sort of relationships are rather than. It's not about trusting because you're going to get the record. And if you're doing your job right, it's a 1 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. And your journalist and the magazine will decide that. So it's not really about trusting a PR company to say, oh, whatever you're sending us is going to be fantastic. It's about what relationship do you have that PR company that can be quite confident that the magazines are going to give the clients that they're representing at the time. And a lot of that comes down to money. And if it's not even, as you say, Kerrang and Metal Hammer aren't getting handed a wee bung and saying, give that 5Ks or give that a 10 out of 10. But that same label or agency or PR might be buying the inside of your cover for an advert, or a double page spread for an advert, in which case any good businessman is sitting there, and some of these publishers, they are businesses, and they're a bit like, right, okay, well, let's make sure we keep that PR company sweet because they're generating money for our magazine.
I can't say for an absolute fact that happens, but I suspect it probably does.
Okay.
I've got some quick fire questions here. Depending on how quick fire your answers are, we might get to some of the other questions we've got in the bag. But let's see how we go. So Alex Dixon asks, what's the worst band you've been forced to see live for the purposes of review?
I don't want to be too horrible to bands who are small, so I'll say Five Finger Death Punch. I was flown out to Munich to see Five Finger Death Punch because they wanted to sell more tickets for their upcoming Wembley Arena tour, but they didn't want to bring anyone from Kerrang or Mounthammer in because they had covered that band to death, so they wanted someone from a newspaper to come in and do it. I said to Michelle, dearly parted Michelle, amazing PR who passed away a few years ago, I said to her, you know that I think Five Finger Death Punch are out of shite, right? And she said, I know, but you're my only option. So I flew to Munich. Five Finger Death Punch's crew were really, really nice to me. I met the guitarist with the big beard who looks like he's got an octopus on his face. He was really, really nice as well. They wined and dined me and treated me really well, and they got a 2-star review out of it.
Oh, yes, mate.
You see, people, this is what we're talking about. And why did they get a 2-star review, Remfry? Because they weren't very good.
Because the crowd were quite, not even the crowd, not even the people who had paid to go and see them, they seemed quite tepid. There was an awful lot of, what's his name? Ivan Moody having to sort of G up the crowd. There was this point, I mean, I assume they do this at every single show, but there was this point where they brought a load of fans up onto the stage so that they could have photos with them and all that kind of thing, which is a really cool thing to do with for your fans, and that's a cool moment for them. But for everyone else in the arena, it just completely killed momentum of the show. And it's like, I'm like, this is awesome for them. I'm really pleased that they get to do that, but I'm kind of bored off my tits here, you know. Another beer, please. I think I summed it up at the end of that review. Five Finger Death Punch of vanilla ice cream, and vanilla ice cream's nice, it's good, but chocolate is out there, mint choc chip, fucking raspberry ripple. There's so many why settle for vanilla when there's so many other fucking cookie dough, mate? Fucking cookie dough, come on.
And to answer like a sort of theme across all these questions, and always this happens to promote as well, is your personal preference doesn't always need to. That's not more important than the objectivity. If you'd went to that same show and been blown away by music that you weren't that interested in, it could have been a 5 out of 5.
If the crowd had been super, super into it, if the performance had been absolutely tight as fuck, it was very good. I'll give them that. But a couple of minor. If they hadn't have had a 10-minute interval, fucking 7 songs in or something, which completely robbed momentum of the show. If everyone around me was having an absolutely fantastic time, and it was a great show and it was a great spectacle. The spectacle of the show was sort of ho hum, you know, for an arena act. It's like it's got to be a bit more than this. I would have given it 4 probably. They would have got that, but
4 out of 10 or 4 out of 5?
No, that's out of 5. That's out of 5. Okay. That's out of 5. That's out of 5. 4 out of 5. But those things weren't there, and you know, I have given good reviews to bands that I personally just don't have any. I'm just not bothered by at all. And you've got to, you know, consider those things. I said this all the time on Riot Act, and I used to get crucified for it, but fuck it, I'm right. Objectivity and subjectivity exists in music. Both of those things are true.
Yeah.
Good.
Next question, James.
Christopher Kelly asks, who was the hardest interview and who was the nicest?
Hardest is... I have been quite lucky. Most journalists who've been doing it for as long as I have at least one horror story. I don't, because I do my research, which is a really egotistical, shitty thing to say, but fuck it, it's true. I've never had a horrible experience, really. I've had horrible experiences where tech hasn't worked, or I've had embarrassing experiences where I've had a couple of experiences where I've gone, oh, the tape didn't record. I'm so sorry. Can we do that again? And sometimes it's just, no, you're an idiot. Sometimes it's, yes, that's totally fine. I've never had anyone be really horrible to me. I've had people that I'm shit scared and intimidated to interview, maybe because they have a reputation, or
Like who?
Maynard James Keenan. I was terrified of interviewing Maynard James Keenan because
Was he just boring?
no, he has a doesn't take any shit and doesn't what's the fucking phrase? Doesn't take fools
Suffer fools gladly.
Thank you. Doesn't suffer fools gladly. Which he has every fucking right to do, you know. And this was the period of time where every fucking journalist was saying to him, when's the new Tool album going to come out? And we were very specifically told, do not ask about Tool. This was an interview for Pacifica.
Do you know, Remfry, that you interviewed me
that day?
5 minutes before you interviewed Maynard? Do you remember that?
I was about to say that.
You were like, can we just get this fucking over with? Because I've got bigger shit,
bigger fish to fry. Yeah. And I was right. But yeah, that interview, I remember. So we were at the Devil PR offices, which are no longer there, but we were at the Devil PR offices. And I interviewed you. I was very much like, let's get this out of the way. I've got Maynard to interview. And that interview, I don't remember a single thing from that interview, because the entire time you were talking, I was thinking, I'm going to interview Maynard James Keenan in a minute. I'm going to interview Maynard James Keenan in a minute. I'm going to, and I was just panicking. So yeah, sorry about that. I hope that worked out.
No,
okay.
all good. All good.
Know. Cool. Amazing. A best interview?
The nicest or best?
Oh, God damn it. There's loads. Honestly, the vast majority of people are actually really nice when you sit down and talk to them. And the vast majority of people, musicians, the people that that we all idolize and put on a pedestal and stuff, they're just people. And as long as you treat them like people, they will be really nice. Oh, who's been really nice? Joe from Gojira is an absolute legend. I've interviewed him a couple of times. Bill Gould from Faith No More was absolutely fantastic. Chris Cornell was incredibly intimidating because he had a personal bodyguard who stood over me the entire time, and I was so nervous for that interview. But he was.
And that was a face-to-face
angel.
with Chris Cornell.
That was a face-to-face backstage at the Royal Albert Hall.
And in that situation, is the bodyguard there in case you're a fucking idiot? I mean, he's literally like, in case you're stabbing with your pen, or is he there? Like,
I think
having bodyguards with you, but why is he sitting in a one-on-one interview?
I think someone like Chris Cornell probably does need a personal bodyguard around him at almost all times because of his level of fame. And look, the bodyguard was very nice. It's just he was a very big built gentleman, and he was standing in the corner of the room, and I kept sort of looking over at him every so often, worried that if I asked a question that Chris didn't like, he was going to punch me in the fucking face. And that is an intimidating situation to be in. But Chris was great. I mean, that was, probably one of the highlights of my career. Getting to sit down face to face with Chris Cornell for 25 minutes, 30 minutes. I mean, yeah, that was incredible.
Amazing.
It will be, right, listen, it will be a surprise to absolutely no one that Remfry wanted 3 choices for his on the record. So if there's any chance of him getting him in very quickly, Remfry, we are going to have to move on. You did kindly say that you will go to the group and answer any questions that remain unanswered for... I suppose that'll be Thursday afternoon or Friday. So by all means, if you've got more you want to pepper Remfry with, then do that. And by all means, we can have you back on at some point down the line, and we can do this more, because we could go on forever, but we can't, because we need to talk about Lose Brews. And there's another one. You've actually got a connection with Lose Brews also, Remfry. Am I right in thinking?
Oh, yes, I do. So Lou released this sauce 6 months ago, something like that, called Rolo Tabasco. It was originally had some other title, some shit title, rubbish. I was speaking to James Spence of the band Rolo Tomasi at your show in London, Two Promoters One Pod show in London at Bush Hall. And he was telling me, we're bringing out a Lou's Brew sauce. I said, what's the name? It's got to have, the most important thing about the sauce is the name, right? He said some shit thing. And I was like, why aren't you calling it Rolo Tabasco, you fucking idiots? And they changed everything very last minute and named it Rolo Tabasco. So Rolo Tabasco is my favourite sauce. That's not the question you asked, but that's the answer to the question that you were going to ask probably. And I love it because the name of this sauce is great. Haven't tasted it. Don't know what it tastes like. But the name is fucking spectacular.
Well, pure coincidentally, and as genuine as coincidental, I am doing a big lump of pork in a slow cooker downstairs, and it has half a bottle of saltburn bath water in there, and it has some Rolo Tabasco. So the Rolo Tabasco is amazing anyway, but I'm expecting it to get right in that pork. A nice bit of pulled pork by the time it's all done. I have used always seasonings on there. My wife said, make sure you give it a good rub. I was like, fair play. It's got the Nashville seasoning in there. It's got everything. Oh, she wasn't talking about the pork.
Even saying she was talking about the pork, that doesn't save you, Gav. Doesn't save you.
You know what?
Clip it, Shifty, clip it.
Where's Danny Filth when you need him, eh?
You know that was like finally a good ad read. He's pulling his pork. So if you two want to roll your pork well, use some Rolo Tabasco and
don't put Rolo Tabasco on your dick. There's spicy shit in it. Don't do that. Or your foof ladies, do not do that. Don't do that.
Yeah. It's seasoning. Where was that? The everything seasoning, Nashville seasoning, and he's mango and lime all on my big slab of meat and it's in the slow cooker. If you too want to have a great pulled pork, then get yourself to louisbrews.co.uk, pod 15 at checkout for 15% off your order. His sauces are fantastic, and Remfry is telling the truth. He did name the Rolo Tabasco, so go and treat yourself to one of them if there's any left. James, the home stretch, big man, the home stretch. Take us.
So, well, look, on the record, Remfry, so you are going to choose one from each festival, I believe. So
yeah, so look,
give us
my sub name for this is bands that you should book for your festivals and you fucking haven't yet, and what the fuck are you guys playing at?
Great.
So 2000 Trees pick. Let's go in order of when these festivals are coming. Sorry, you're always the last. Gav, that's your fault for having a festival in November. 2000 Trees pick is Great Grandpa and the song Digger. I think emo has been going through an amazing revival in the last sort of 10, 15 years, but I am getting a little bit fed up over the last couple of years of people recycling the same basement riffs over and over again. Great Grandpa don't do that. They have these awesome song structures. They have these incredible choruses. I love this band, and Digger is just a brilliant, brilliant example of that. You should absolutely book them.
Okay.
They've only come over to the UK once. For ArcTangent, I've been on at you about this band for fucking 2.5 years, and finally I get to go on your platform and tell you what a bellend you are, because Outbreak have booked them. So I know you can't, I'm assuming you can't book them for 2026, but Greet Death, I think Matt's been on at you about this one as well. Greet Death, if you like Holy Fawn, listen to Greet Death. They are fronted by two people, one of whom I always say sounds like Stevie Nicks from Fleetwood Mac, but it's this really heavy gaze kind of thing. Holy Fawn are playing Damnation, aren't they, Gav?
Yes.
Great booking.
Thank you.
Greet Death are sublime, and they're so good. They're finally coming over to the UK for Outbreak. You missed the boat, but they will be back, hopefully at ArcTangent in 2027. Absolutely incredible band.
Song name?
Song I want to put. Song name is You're Gonna Hate What You've Done. Not the most ArcTangent-y song, apart from the length of the song, which is 8 minutes and 58 seconds. It's great.
Okay.
And then for Damnation, Gav, I know you love bringing bands back from the dead, sort of. You did that kind of with Dead Guy, the last Damnation, which is a fucking fantastic booking. But you know the Tony Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza are back and playing shows in the US, right?
I didn't know that.
The Tony Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza are back, and they are playing shows in the US, and they have gone very well. So well, as a matter of fact, that they have said that Danza 5, their 5th record, is coming out soon. Tony Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza are, I guess, similar to Dead Guy. They are, they took this, what Frontierer are doing now, and what Car Bomb are doing now, and all those metal bands who are sort of taking the Meshuggah thing and putting it through a filter of absolute fucking chaos. Tony Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza were doing that certainly 10 years before Frontierer were. I love my boys in Frontierer, but it's true. And I know definitely privately we've had conversations about Tony Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza. Oh God, fuck that name. The Tony Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza. And I know that Frontierer love those guys as well. I would like to put the song You Won't on there because it's an absolute face melter.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, Remfry.
Oh, mate. Yes.
Right.
Nice.
No, but I don't. Right. Okay. You can tell me off air how you're managing that and exactly. But what bit is he you're bleeding? I mean, he's whole fucking what? Right. So you can tell me so you didn't have more bleeps to do. You can explain to me how that's getting edited.
There was no plan there, was there? We didn't have a plan. It just happened. You've got to go with these things.
Right. Okay. But that's
made me so happy.
Right, no bleeping then, Shifty. We'll just have an immediate exclusive at the end for those who make it to the end of the podcast. Right, James, who's your on the record pick?
I'm going to go for. I've completely flustered myself there. I am going to go for Gomorrah Nouveau by Imperial Triumphant. I finally finished my albums of 2025 list, and this has ended up at number 6. This album. Because it just finally clicked with me. I don't know what the fuck happened when it came out in March. I think I must have been stressed, and no one wants to listen to Imperial Triumphant when they're stressed because it's just piling on the stress. But, this is supposed to be their commercial album, but it still sounds like a fucking load of riffs falling down some stairs, and it's absolutely bonkers. And I really think it's fucking brilliant. So, yeah, get involved with that album, people.
Okay. I am going to go with Health. And the record that got me in it was Disco 4. This is probably a weird start because it's the one that's got all the collabs. So I went to see them live. They never played any of them live because all the guys that did the collabs weren't there on stage with them. So I need to do Moby Health because I love this album so much. It's the one I keep going back to. And 3 tracks in particular, isn't everyone the one who do with 9 Inch Nails, which is a big hit that really got people hooked in. And then they get the Identity. It sounds like it's like a metalworks factory in Birmingham somewhere with a rave in the middle of it. It's going to still go ding ding and then doof doof doof. But the one that's probably the least Health sounding tune you're going to get, and probably a bad example of how Health sound anywhere else, is Still Breathing. And it's with an artist called Ecstasy, and it's just how fucking raw and emotional it is, and I just love a good lyric. And it's basically this guy, almost exacerbated voice, talk about how hard it is to keep going on day by day, filled with drugs and drug addiction. And the lyric that the guy for Hell sings back is, "Hold on a while, you're still young, it gets better sometimes," which in itself is just such a hopeless fucking lyric that even if you hang in there, it might feel better sometimes. And I love that track the most from that record, even though it's probably the least Health track. I mean, it's not a rave tune, it's a proper fucking slow burner. So Still Breathing by Health, but I would check out, if I was a fan, someone wanting to check out Health, make sure you go through that full album and then investigate further from that point onwards.
Volume 4, Slaves of Fear, that's the one.
New album is good as well.
Yes.
Good as well.
I had a chance to do that. So, well, Remfry. Another, I mean, I don't know if that was a record breaker you've said there, because obviously James has got his pee breaks in the middle, but it looks like it's a good 2 hour plus, James says. If it gets to 2 hours, we're pulling the plug. So you managed to force us through for another few minutes.
Yeah, sorry.
I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry, anything you want to tell the listeners very quickly before we go?
I've had an absolute blast. Thank you so much for inviting me on. If you ever want to do a part 2, anytime. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Really appreciate it.
Jamesy boy, I will see you next week.
See you there.